All right, moving forward, I can get this screen out of the way. All right, so the workout: 4 minute time cap, 25 toes to bar, 50 double unders, 15 squat cleans, and then if you get through that in 4 minutes, you've got up to the 8 minute time cap to do 25 toes to bar, 50 double unders, 13 squat cleans at 185, 115. Then it moves to 12 minutes, 25. Left out the 50 double unders. There are 50 double unders there, so don't skip that because I said so. 25 toes to bar, 50 double unders, 11 squat cleans, and so forth, up to the 7 squat cleans at 315 or 205. By the way, before I go any farther, if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box as we go, but I've got the chat box pulled kind of down out of the way so I can see the screen a little bit better. So I may not see it as we're going, but we'll come back and we'll have time for Q&A at the end once we get through with the actual presentation. So again, there's the workout if you hadn't seen it already. So next, my initial thoughts on this were toes to bar going to be the main limiter when he first announced it before I saw them do the workout or anything. Toes to bar going to be the limiter. People are going to be going out way too fast. Is what I initially thought on this workout. Bottlenecks are going to be at each one of the squat clean weights, and then double under efficiency is going to be a little bit of a factor in this workout. If you're not super efficient at the double unders, then you're going to have to pace the rest of the workout a little bit differently. But just those are some of my initial thoughts. I'm going to come back on some of those and change my thoughts on it after seeing the workout. So here's the breakdown. I didn't do Goodmanson's breakdown just because it took me a while to do this one because I wrote it down as the times, but then I went back through and changed it to the time of each thing. So I just want to look at this. His toes to bar, he went out unbroken on his first 2 toes to bar, and then his third set was 15 and 10. And obviously the time here, like this includes, this 107 or 130 or 142 time. That's not from the first toes to bar to the 25th. That's from when he finishes the cleans to the last toes to bar. So it's a little bit skewed there. But you can see he does slow down a lot on those. He went out pretty fast. And then the double unders, he was unbroken the whole time, pretty much the same time. Again, this 45-second here was just basically him taking 10 extra seconds to start. So his double unders are pretty much the same there, which is important. You need to get those done and get them out of the way. There's no time to break on those. And then his squat cleans, if you look at it with the consideration of the weights, I would say those are really consistent times. His 135, he could have gone a lot faster on, and he didn't. So just an interesting way to look at the breakdown. You're obviously not going to move faster throughout this workout. Even if you do go into the 20-minute time cap, you're not going to start moving faster. So those are some things to think about just when you're looking at his times across the board. Just real quick on nutrition. This one is a little bit of a tricky workout in the sense that it looks like a lot on paper, but it's really not going to be super taxing as far as like a nutrition standpoint, where you need to be like super lightweight, where you can get a bunch of blood flow to the limbs. But you will want to be lightweight because you're doing toes to bar and double unders, but you're also going to need some food and some protein in you on the cleans to make sure you don't muscle fatigue out too early. So what I just put was what I would do, and then I'll let McGee chime in on what he would do, because I don't think I feel comfortable suggesting something across the board for everybody. So my ideal thing for this one would be before I would have a normal meal about 2 or 3 hours before this, probably closer to 3 hours before this. And then about 30, 45 minutes, I'd probably start sipping on some branched chain amino acids with some carbs mixed in there. So a carb powder or Gatorade or something. I would have just a little bit, not a lot at all. Probably 10 to 15 grams of BCAAs with 15 to 20 grams of carbs in one shake. And I'd start on that about 30 to 45 minutes and sip on it all the way up until the actual workout. And I probably wouldn't finish it. That would be the same thing I would sip on during the workout if I needed to sip on anything. And then I'd have my caffeine about 30 minutes before. Obviously knowing your tolerance here, but I would take a moderate to high dose of caffeine for this workout to delay the onset of muscle fatigue and to give you that little extra boost for the cleans. I don't think you have to worry about necessarily going out too hard on this one from just a go, go, go standpoint. So I think caffeine would be a good thing. That would be my take on it. And then just a regular post workout shake. McGee, what would you say as far as nutrition going into this workout for you, or maybe suggestions for them?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. This one is is hard to. I'll have to use just myself as an example because there's so many different factors on where someone might be for this. So if you're someone who's only going to get like one round,
Yeah.
your pre-workout nutrition is going to be totally different versus someone who's going to last the whole 20 minutes. So for myself, I would see myself getting into the 275 cleans and kind of being around there, maybe finishing, maybe ending up there. So we're looking at like a 16-minute workout. So regardless of how much pacing and whatever else, it's still a 16-minute workout for me. So yeah, I would need a really long warm up for this. And with that said, like I don't want to eat too much. I want to be kind of empty. This is me personally. But I'm kind of the same in line with you on this in terms of the caffeine intake, like because with a little bit of fatigue and the high breathing, because for me it's going to be more high breathing than strength.
Hmm.
I'm going to need that extra boost to kind of stay focused and um, still be sharp when it comes time to hit the cleans.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you know you're going to be limited by the actual clean weight, then you're going to want to bump your caffeine up a little bit because if that's going to be
Right.
your limiter of basically hitting a one rep max clean, then you need to be pretty jazzed up.
Yeah, and I think too, like the cleans are going to be, and we'll go more into this during the pacing part of it, but
Hmm.
the cleans are going to be where you kind of adjust your pace.
Yep.
So you can go hot on toes to bar and double unders, and then you've got plenty of time to say like, all right, I'm doing cleans every 5 seconds. I probably need to back off to every 10 seconds.
Right. So if you look at the going back to this slide with the toes to bar double unders, the majority of the time is spent on the cleans here. So if you go out too hot on the toes to bar double unders right here, you need to slow down a little bit. You're going to be doing singles anyway, which we're going to talk about, but you're probably going to be doing singles anyway. So you can just take an extra breath in between each one, and that's going to slow you down, get that heart rate back down a little bit more under control. Yeah, so leading into the warm up, like he said, pretty long warm up here for this one. And as you can see, this totals up to a pretty long workout. Warm up. So I've got 8 to 10 minutes aerobic, getting the blood flow, getting a good sweat going, getting that heart rate up to, you know, zone two, zone three rate, which is going to be 130, 160 uh, heart rate, somewhere in there, just getting that good sweat going. And then again, this is kind of my interpretation of what I'm going to suggest for most of my people. And Mike can chime in when I finish this, but because he may have some differences. But I would do 8 to 10 minutes aerobic, 5 minutes spending mobilization on hip flexion, specifically for toes to bar. So that's basically being able to fold yourself in half. So your hamstring length, your glutes, um, and then actively being able to pull yourself into that. So maybe sitting in the L sit position, kind of working on that active hip flexion versus passive hip flexion, where you're pulling your leg into and stretching that hamstring. You're maybe actively sitting on the ground, pulling your with your abs. You're pulling your torso forward to stretch those hamstrings. Just working on that hip flexion mobilization for those toes to bar, because that's going to be a big factor. The less you're fighting against yourself for that range of motion, then the easier it's going to be. And then obviously that's going to carry over a little bit to the squat. So that's why I don't have as much mobility for the squat, because that hip flexion is obviously going to carry over a little bit there. But 3 to 5 minutes of squat mobility, and then 5 to 7 minutes of specific double under toes to bar movement prep. So this will include shoulders, just because I don't have shoulders anywhere else in there, but you do want to warm those up too. So some hanging shoulder circles uh, is really the main thing I'll do. Hanging shoulder circles, maybe stretch out a little bit in that overhead position, but not a ton is needed. You're just going to be doing toes to bar, which are going to loosen you up pretty good. So this 5 to 7 minutes would be, a couple toes to bar, a couple of double unders, a couple toes to bar, a couple of double unders, resting in between, just kind of getting comfortable with those movements, making those movements feel easy, and then separate that out and do 5 to 10 minutes, building up to your estimated final clean weight. This kind of depends on the person. If your final clean weight is going to be the 275 or the 315, Big G can probably speak to this more specifically, but you may not want to get all the way up to that 275. That'll be a decent amount of reps. unless you can get up to it pretty quick. I know he can get up to it pretty quick. And again, he can speak to that a little bit more once I finish my piece. But I would get pretty close to that final clean weight that you know you're going to end at, just so it's not a complete shock to your system. And then I would finish right before I do the actual workout. I would do 2 to 3 sets of 5-ish toes to bar, 20 double unders, and 1 squat clean at the first weight, just to get a feel for that kind of transition from each thing to the next. Rest 3 to 5 minutes, and then get after it. McGee, anything to add to that or different?
Yeah, I just wrote a workout or I wrote a warm up for one of my master's clients. It's almost identical to this. Now I'll talk about what I did for him and then the difference in what I would do. But for him, yeah, the only difference here from what we see versus what I did for him was I gave him a little more squat cleans on the 2 sets that you have. I had 3 rounds of 5 toe to bar, 20 doves, and 3 squat cleans, mainly just because after he builds to a clean, I want him to get comfortable with doing fast singles.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that doing just like 1 or 2 was enough. I think that having that rhythm of like
Yeah.
clean real fast, stand up, drop, clean real fast, stand up, drop. Like you almost have to like practice that before you go in because you may not be comfortable with that once the workout starts because you just got done doing a really heavy clean. So I don't want him like sitting and
Right.
setting up for like he just did for his 1 rep max. So that's the only difference I would do there for him. But for me personally, yeah, I mean, kind of the same pattern. And then I would probably do 3 sets of the 5, 20, and then 3 or 4 squat clean. And
Mm-hmm.
then I would build to that clean before that really quickly, really heavy, because it's not really going to make me tired. And I'm not someone who needs to spend a lot of time warming up like heavy lifts because my nervous system is very efficient. I get there really quickly, but I would spend more time on the transition work, getting more blood to some of the muscles like my abs and my grip and my quads, especially because I just tend to blow up there faster than I would in the heavier weights.
Yeah. So you would get up to 275 or so?
Yeah, I might even go heavier for me
Yeah.
personally,
Yeah.
just to kind of super compensate, right? So like
Right. I like that.
I would want to go heavier than the 275. That's where I'd kind of see myself know what it really feels like to get up that heavy. And
Yeah.
then when it does come, I've already gone heavier than that, so maybe it's not that big a deal.
Yeah. I like that a lot. And I do that a lot with people.
Warm up.
With I agree with that on everything as far as like doing more cleans. That's probably a good idea to work on that pacing and that rhythm of the drop and picking it back up, especially at that first weight. Most people um, listening to this, I would think probably aren't going to need to just get a really good setup to get 135 or 85. So it's just reaching down, grabbing the bar, and pulling it. And so yeah, getting in that rhythm is good. And yeah, ideally I
Yeah,
would get, like you said, 2 to 4 sets of that. Just depending on time. I mean, you've already got depending on how much time you
yep,
spend on the rest of it. But yeah, I like that.
yeah.
Um,
And I'll be honest, like watching the differences between Dan and Vormez Gudmundsson, um, I honestly thought that he was going to end up winning it because of how inefficient Dan was moving.
yep.
It really surprised me, and I think that honestly, if they were to redo it, I think that he still might, just because I think he didn't go hard enough in the beginning. I feel like he was maybe too conservative
Yeah.
because he had 2 reps left, and Dan got to the bar a minute before him,
Yep.
um, and so that means he caught up a lot of ground. And I just think that I don't know, maybe for this one, they're a prime example that you didn't have to be super efficient. You still had to move. It was like a mix. So being too cautious is just
Yeah.
going to cost you time.
Yeah. I agree, which I think comes up. I think it's on the next slide where we get into that a little bit more. But just some real quick things to go
Spoiler
over.
alert.
What?
Nothing. Go ahead.
The tiebreaker. Um, know your tiebreaker. End of the double unders is the tiebreaker is the end of the double under. So it's not the weight that you end at. So like I think in the past it's been basically where you get stuck. But it's actually not that. So if you know you're going to you can't clean 275, which means your last clean weight will be 225. You're going to need to sprint through that next 25 toes to bar and 50 double unders because that's going to be your tiebreaker score. Um, not your not the time that you finish on the 225 squat cleans because that's not the last movement. So just know where your tiebreaker is going to be and be conscious of that and be aware of that when you're going into it. If you know you're only going to do one round, then you're going to have to move really fast on those two sets of 25 toes to bar and 50 double unders right there. Know your limiter in the movements as far as toes to bar or double unders. This is not talking about the barbell because we've kind of already touched on that. But if you're inefficient at double unders, then you're going to have to push the toes to bar a little bit faster. If you're inefficient at toes to bar, then you're going to have to push the double unders and the cleans a little bit faster. So just thinking about your movement specifically to yourself. What are you efficient at? What are you comfortable with? Know where you are. Know where you're going to need to push to make up ground for that. Um, yeah, push the pace on the toes to bar. So this is kind of what we were talking about earlier. We thought Dan Bailey went out a little bit too fast, and he doesn't move as efficiently as the other guy, and as a lot of athletes. So we thought that he may blow up at the end because of that inefficient movement and him starting out too fast. But it proved to be worth it to have that extra time to get those extra heavy cleans in. So push the pace on the toes to bar, even if you have to break them up. It needs to be really quick breaks and pushing it so you can get ahead of the clock so you can earn more time to do those bigger sets because, again, it's not 4 minute blocks specifically. You can continue right into the next piece. So after McGee and I talked and after we watched the video, like I said, when we first saw it, we thought you're going to need to pace the toes to bar a lot out the gate. We thought Dan Bailey started out way too hot. But it turns out getting ahead of the clock and allowing yourself more time for those heavy cleans pays off in the end, even if you have to drop down to 4 or 5 reps at a time. Now, if you know you're going to have to go to singles relatively quick after 50 toes to bar or so, then you may want to pace a little bit differently, but I still think you're going to want to push the pace uh, more than it looked like on paper on the front end.
Yeah, and that's the deceiving thing about this workout is,
Yeah.
like, let's say that you paced a little bit in the beginning and gave yourself only a minute left. I think these guys finished their first one in like 2:10 or 2:20
Yeah.
or yeah, something
223.
like that. They had like 90 seconds left. So I mean, you're gonna go slower the next round. Now you do have that extra, you have the whole 4 minutes plus the 90 seconds out of that. So yeah, you have extra time, but it's just gonna get slower and slower. So you just don't have time to pace that. No, unfortunately, like watching these guys do it, they go out really hard and they can hold that. Like they can just
Mm-hmm.
hang on. Like I don't even know how they felt at the end, and it still looks like they were just, oh, okay, I'm still just kind of trucking along. But like the pace that you're just gonna have to play with that and be pretty aggressive if you're trying to get pretty deep into it.
Yeah. That's what we're saying. You want to get ahead of the clock. You're not going to be able to negative split the workout, which means you're not
Hmm.
going to be able to keep that same pace. So, like, what was it 3 or 4 years ago where they had the 4 minute blocks and it was just 3 rounds of, or maybe 2 rounds of 15 thrusters and 15 toes to bar. And you did have to pace that different because the rep scheme and the weights didn't change throughout the whole thing. So you wanted to stay more consistent throughout. But this one, you know you're
Right.
going to be slowing down because the cleans get heavier,
Yep.
significantly heavier. So you got to get ahead of the clock a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Which is just gonna make it more painful.
Yeah. Too bad I still can't do it. So, all right. So set up your bar, and this was pull up bar. What I'm talking about. Get that just barely out of reach or right at your fingertips. You don't want to have to be jumping up to that bar, especially if you're going to be breaking them up a lot. Want to make sure it's has a good grip on the bar. If you need to tape it, tape it. I know at my gym we have like 2 or 3 bars that have a way better grip on them than the rest of them. So everybody obviously tries to hog those bars. If you need to tape the bar, tape it. Um, yeah, and just make it to where you're not having to jump too big. Jump rope, like we talked about, McGee and I talked about before we got on here. Have 2 of them in case one of them gets tangled or one of them breaks. Um, and then the one you are using, make sure you set it down nicely. Again, you're not sprinting from the jump rope to the cleans necessarily. So lay it down nicely where it's laid out, where you can just step into it, pick it up, and go. Um, don't just throw it down and let it get tangled. That being said, you are want to go pretty much straight from the double unders to the barbell to clean that first weight, especially in the first couple of sets. As far as the barbell goes, make sure you get a good lifting bar. So if you have, 1 or 2 nice bars at the gym, try to hold out and wait for that bar to be available. And plates that are easy to change on and off. And I also made the note, make sure you get somebody to change your weights out that knows what they're doing. You don't want to be get to the bar and have the wrong weights on there and have to tell them to change it out, or you have to change it out, or something like that. If you have the availability, set up, you know, 5 different bars or
I
whatever.
think
Go ahead. You there?
sorry, you broke up for a second. I was just gonna say like you shouldn't even consider. Yeah, sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
I was gonna say you shouldn't even consider changing the plates out like unless you obviously like absolutely have to. Just there's just no point.
Yeah.
You can have someone do it or just have extra bars out, but um, make sure you get plates that don't bounce either for that first set for the 135 and the 85. You want plates that just drop to the ground real quick.
Leading right into the next slide.
Oh, again, spoiler alert.
Plates that don't bounce, at least on the first one. Yeah, that 135 and 85, you're going to be moving fairly quick on those, so you don't want to be chasing the bar around. I don't think it matters a ton after that, because you're going to be taking a little bit more breaks in between. But still, yeah, if you have the choice of less bouncy plates, then get less bouncy plates. Um, Grips for your hands, if your hands grip easier, or if you're used to using grips, obviously use those. You're going to be doing a decent amount of toes to bar. Make sure they're easy to move out of the way for the other stuff, the double unders and the cleans. Um, we talked about belts. I suggest putting your belt on for your next to last weight, if not the third to last weight. So let's say you're going to get to the 275. I would at least put it on at the 225, if not even the 185. As long as it's easy to take on and off, it does help with your core giving out and fatiguing out on those heavy weights, especially since you're doing toes to bar too. Would you agree with that, Mike?
Yeah, definitely. Just get a belt that's easy adjustable. Like I have a Velcro Vallejo belt that I use that it's light enough that I can wear during toe to bar and double unders. And like obviously I want it loose when I'm doing those so I can breathe. And then, even something that in between reps you can open and then close again real quick to get a breath in
Mm-hmm. Yep.
between clean reps.
Yeah. Clean reps on the squat clean.
I'll likely wear it on the 185
Yeah.
just because it's just less work I have to do in terms of trying to fight and keep my midline stable.
Yeah. I 100% agree that you saw Dan Bailey at the end, especially if you're somebody like that who starts caving forward with that inefficiency in the front squat. Which
Hmm.
even if you're not somebody like that, it's still going to eventually start wearing on you. But yeah, if
Yep.
you're definitely somebody like that, like I am, with kind of forward shoulders in the front squat, it's definitely going to save your energy down the road. So yeah, I would be putting it on at the 185 probably, and I don't even wear a belt normally, but for this workout, I probably would. Um,
Yeah.
Shoes depends on your efficiency with everything and making sure you're comfortable with doing toes to bar and double unders in weightlifting shoes. But again, I think this workout, the squat cleans is the sticking point and where the reps are going to be made and lost. And so if you can wear them and do toes to bar and double unders in them, then I say go for it. If you're not super comfortable with them, you don't want to be tripping 7, 8 times on 50 double unders just to try to wear shoes that make you clean better.
Yeah, I wear the Reebok, like the first edition Reebok Oli lifters. I save those for workouts like this because like the heel was pretty low
Yeah.
and they're super light, but it was low enough to like still get a good squat mechanics with it, but
Mm-hmm.
obviously high enough to help out. And then just they're super lightweight versus the newer model ones are a little bit bigger and clunkier.
Yeah. And just a side note, in the off season, if you're serious about competing, you need to be training to wear nanos or whatever tennis shoes you like to wear for heavy lifts for situations
Hmm.
like this.
Yeah, if you had to
Um,
run and squat snatch, you're kind of screwed.
yeah. So think about that in your off season training. Um, Movements. Really, the only thing I had on movements was toes to bar was just speed and efficiency. I know I teach my athletes to try to have a couple of different styles of especially the gymnastics movement, but really of every movement of, a really fast style, a moderate style, and then like a style that if your judge is being extremely critical, a style that you can slow down and make sure the reps are perfectly. I would definitely go with the kind of moderate style here, not trying to fly through your toes to bar like some people try to do, like butterfly toes to bar or just super fast toes to bar. I don't think it's necessarily a time to do that. I think the endurance of it and the consistency of it is going to be more important. So just taking a smooth, nice rhythm on these toes to bar is going to be better.
Yeah, we saw a couple of different styles, like um, BKG. I'm gonna call him that. I think it's easier to say that than his name. He started off with like the straight leg toe to bar, which he obviously has like great hip flexion and very flexible hamstrings.
Yeah, and they said
You
he's
saw
been
Dan
an
kind of
athlete for
hunched up.
9 years, so
Yeah, you could definitely tell like
yeah,
his kip was very efficient and easy. And then, but as he did start to fatigue, you noticed where he started to pull the knees up and then kick.
yeah,
And I think that's a great strategy because I know that movement that he's doing where it's very relaxed. He's just kind of swinging the feet and they fly up. And as your the muscles in your stomach start to blow out, you just pull the knees a little bit higher and then finish the movement with the kick. I think that's super efficient and it looked pretty easy for him. I know he
yeah.
didn't win the workout, but still he'll still have one of the best scores in the world.
Yeah, and I agree. I think if he did it again, I think he could have beat him. And on Dan Bailey's next to last set on toes to bar, he went 10-6-4-5, and I think
Hmm.
uh, BKG or whatever went like 10-8-7 or something, so bigger set still. And on the
Yeah,
last set, Bailey went 6-5 or 6-4-5 and like 3-2 something, and BKG still went like 10-8-7 or something like that on the last one.
yeah,
So his efficiency lasted longer, and I think, like you said, if he had paced hotter out the gate, I think he could have won that workout.
yep.
Cool down, nothing tricky here. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be just a super taxing workout. I know that sounds crazy. It looks like on paper it's a lot, and it is going to be a lot. Don't get me wrong. It's not going to feel like last week's though. I don't think. I don't. I didn't really think last week's was going to feel like it did either, but I don't think this one's going to feel that way.
I
Um,
agree. One more note I wanted to say about the Toza bar is I think for the majority of the crowd that might be listening to this, it's going to be you're going to spend a lot of time there and a lot of breaking up early.
yeah,
So get comfortable with doing the fast singles technique. So make sure you have a bar that's low so you don't have to jump super high every time and then do a full kip. Have a bar that's low where you can run up to it and then obviously with your feet starting behind you, you swing up and kick real fast, you drop, you turn around, and you do the same thing like over and over. It's annoying doing it. It feels like you're doing burpees, but it is fast.
for sure. Yeah, we kind of did talk about kind of the higher end athletes maybe on this call, or this webinar or
Hmm.
whatever. So yeah, if you are somebody who's not as efficient at toes to bar, and those are going to be kind of also a limiter, because I think the weights are going to be a limiter for those kind of people too. But so maybe also a limiter. Definitely get a bar that's within reach. Start with low reps. If you know that your max rep toes to bar unbroken is like 10 reps, then you obviously don't want to start with 10. You want to start with 4 or 5, where you can drop down quickly, and ask your coach in the gym to kind of, if they know about the singles pacing and strategy and how to do that. And like McGee said, the fastest way to do that is to face the bar, jump up, and go straight into that first rep. As soon as your toes hit the bar, you're on your way down, letting go of the bar, dropping to the ground. You turn immediately around. You're already ready to jump right back into that swing for the next rep. Um,
Right, you basically take out the eccentric.
yeah,
Um,
and it can be
and I'm
pretty
a big
quick.
fan of yeah, they can be pretty fast. Like I think even the same with chest to bars, we've seen people in the past do
Hmm.
that 3 minute interval open workout with chest bar overhead squats, doing all singles and still did a really good score.
Yeah,
Um,
I did
so
that
just keep that in mind. And yeah, I mean, you're gonna feel like you're not getting anywhere, but you're still moving. The point is to keep moving and not worry about doing a big set. Um, and then also, um, never mind, I forgot my point. Go ahead.
I was trying to think of anything else on the not elite athletes that we, because I feel like we did kind of lean towards that side on these, but
Oh,
I
descending
still
reps.
think, yeah, yeah,
Descending reps. So make sure that I'm a big fan of doing making sure the amount of reps in each set you do decreases each time. So
sure,
like 10, 8, 7 is 25, right? So A, it's easier on you mentally and it's better on you physically because you're just doing less work as the sets go on.
yeah,
So keep that in mind too, like 6, 5, 4, 4 or whatever. Just always make sure the reps get lower. Don't try and do like the same like just fives could be broken up differently into a bigger set and then 4, 3, 2 or something.
right, yeah. Like if it's 21 and you have to do 7, 7, 7, you get to that last 7, you can't do 7, then it screws your whole mindset up.
Exactly.
So descending sets is definitely the way to go. I still think the strategy is relatively the same, even if you're not, somebody who's going to get to 275 or so. You're still going to want to push the pace out of the gate a little bit faster than it originally looked. You're still going to want to give yourself time. I mean, because the time doesn't, you don't have to wait till the 4 minute to start the next set of toes to bar. Um, that means the strategy is going to be similar for everybody in the sense that you want to push the pace a little on the front end just to allow yourself more time at that heavy barbell, whatever that heavy barbell is for you. Um,
Yep.
cool down. Don't have much. 5 to 7 minutes on the bike. Maybe do some light ab stretches for the toes to bar. I don't think anything else is going to be super taxed. Yeah, you're going to be doing some squat cleans at some moderate to heavy weight, but not going to be super taxing. If you're a regionals or a games level athlete, you could probably train after this, especially depending on when you do the workout. Which leads into repeating. Is there a risk of injury? Almost none. The only reason I didn't put none is because obviously there's a risk of injury for anything that we do. Could you improve the next day? Probably so. Could you improve 2 or 3 days later? I think 100% yes. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
like we talked about, there's so many different factors to this workout and so many different scenarios, and we can tell you everything that we think about it, but you experiencing it is going to be the best way for you to get the best idea, which means you're going to be able to improve on it. Is it worth it?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say back to the total volume. I mean, let's assume that you do
Yeah.
finish the whole thing. You're looking at 125 toes to bar, which sounds like a lot, but it's not really that much over the scope of 20 minutes. That's like an EMOM of like 6 reps or something,
Mm-hmm.
which is not a ton of volume. So that's assuming you finish the whole thing. Now, majority of the people are going to get 2 or 3 rounds. So yeah, it's not a ton of volume, and it's just going to be one of those that it gets so heavy so fast or your toes to bar break up so fast that you may not even like be super out of breath when you do it. You're either gonna be staring at the bar with your grip blown up, or you're gonna be staring at the barbell, waiting to get strong enough again between each rep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just not. It's not.
So
It looks
repeat the
like a
shit
lot
out
on
of
paper. Yeah,
it.
it looks like a lot on paper, but I don't think it's going to be that much for everybody. Now, the guys that did it tonight, yeah, it's a little bit more taxing, but like you said, even that they still only did 125 toes to bar and however many squat cleans that ends up being. Um, is it worth it? The only thing I wanted to just say about this is yes, it's going to be worth it for most scenarios. The only spot time it's not worth it is if you end at a particular weight. And like McGee said, I think every time and every tiebreaker counts because there's going to be a ton of people bottlenecked at the 275 or not getting a 275 rep. So there's going to be a ton of people bottlenecked there, and the 315 obviously. So improving that time is going to be very important. If you're stuck at the 225, it's not going to be as important. And then it's just a decision of whether or not it really matters that much to repeat the workout to get a little bit better tiebreaker score if you know you're not going to get the 225 weight. But like we said, for most people, it's going to be worth it. It's going to be no problem to repeat. You're probably going to get a better score. You may can even do it 2 or 3 times. So you may want to plan on doing it tomorrow, and then maybe plan on doing it Saturday afternoon, and just see where you're at with that. You may be happy with that score. You may want to do it one more time on Monday or something.
My opinions on if you're gonna redo it or if you're gonna practice it. So we just had a question pop up that says I'm gonna do this on Saturday. Um, if I'm gonna do this on Saturday, what we suggest I do tomorrow. I think a couple of things. Well, obviously I wouldn't want to do it the day before, but or train the day before, but um, I think that practicing two things. One, you need to figure out what kind of toe to bar scheme you can handle. So that would be one thing to practice. Like the double unders are double unders. It is what it is. But the toes to bar, you need to figure out how big a sets you can handle. That's the only unknown. And the other unknown is how much rest you need between reps for each clean. So putting yourself on a clock and seeing what kind of pace you can hold for certain reps is going to help you, A, figure out how fast you can finish each little interval, and then B, figure out how much time you need to maybe either speed up or slow down those reps in the cleans. So in terms of practicing, that would be really the only thing I could think of. Mike, you got anything to add to that? Like
Now,
putting yourself on a clock for the cleans? We didn't really talk about that.
um, yeah, I mean that'd be a good idea. I think that could go both ways, making sure you're not going too fast and making sure you're not going too slow on the first weight.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
you don't want to go too slow. You don't want to go. You don't want to like try to get a PR on 15 squat cleans either. But just keeping
Yeah.
a good, nice rhythm like we talked about earlier, and those sets. Sorry, I
For,
go ahead. I was looking through
I was
the
just saying,
questions.
for a lot of the like intermediate, beginner to intermediate people, I think you're going to see a lot of that. They're going to get to the bar and they're going to move way too fast in the first 5 or 6 reps,
Yeah.
and then and especially as it gets heavier, you're going to see them kind of hit a wall, and they might start missing a rep or two or failing because of strength, not necessarily just technique. But so knowing that, knowing what what your pace is and what you can handle on those reps is super important.
Mhm.
Both of those guys knew it on the 315. They looked around and they kind of adjusted. Dan, I think he did like 3 reps that were pretty consistent with like 20 seconds apart.
Mhm.
And then he looked around, and as he almost failed like his fourth one, he thought, all right, I got to back off for a second now. All
Yep.
right, so you do need to learn to adjust in the middle of that. Dan's 315 is going to be everyone else's 225 or 185, right? So
Right.
um, knowing that and practicing that will be really helpful, I think. If you can go into it knowing, okay, I need to wait 15 seconds between each clean, it will help you follow that because you're going to get out there and you're going to do the first three in every 5 seconds, and you're going to be like, oh shit, what did I do?
Yeah, and hopefully, and if you're under one of our programs, if you're under me or McGee or In Flight or Muscle Gain or one of those programs, you've probably done stuff that like some battery tests that we do, whether it's 80% or 90% squat cleans for 8 minutes or heavy snatches or different kind of battery tests that we do with that. And you should know kind of if you're good at that kind of stuff or if you're not good at that kind of stuff. And we've all seen Froning where he just does one, rest 5 seconds, does one, rest 5 seconds. Even if it's like 95% of his 1 rep max, he can just do that. And you got other people who can't move like that, and you have to know your system going into it. So I think a lot of y'all, if you've been in our programs, have probably done some of that, and hopefully you kind of know your engine and how quickly you can reset that battery in between heavy sets or reps.
Um, Mike, I got one more thing too. Let's talk about the scaled real quick. So,
Yeah.
looking at the movements for scaled, I don't really see that much of a difference in the workout.
Can you
You've got
can you
hanging
say it
knee.
out loud? Say what?
Yeah, let me see here. Let me pull it up. All right, RX. No, that's not it. All right, so scaled, 25 hanging knee raises, 50 single unders, and 15 squat cleans. So it's basically the same workout, just single unders, knee raises, and then lighter weight on the squat cleans. Same reps, same format. So yeah, I mean, really, it's very similar. I think it's going to feel the same. Obviously, if you can't do any toe to bar, you're still going to have some trouble with hanging knee raises, I believe. I don't think they're going to be that much easier. Um, Single unders,
Um,
these guys were taking 30 seconds to do 50 unbroken double unders. I think that's going to be pretty average for most people that do these unbroken because they weren't like flying on them. So 30 to 40 seconds. Single unders are going to be a little bit of half that, so you're going to have a little more time there. Um, so again, I think it's just kind of the same, but it's just um, based on who you are, I would treat it the exact same though.
yeah. Have you seen many people do those hanging knee raises?
No, I haven't. I don't,
So
and I wish I probably should. I should know the standard better, but I don't know the exact standard. Is it knee above hip?
it's knee above hip, and usually it's you move through those pretty quickly. Um,
Okay.
So yeah, they can usually fly through those pretty quickly. So the weight I think will be more of a limiter, or possibly grip for a lot of those people with grip. Just hanging on the bar that long is going to be
Hmm.
more the limiter, not necessarily.
Right. Okay.
So it's feel a little bit different, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's pretty much the same strategy that we've been talking about. Somebody
Gotcha.
asked if you're attempting a clean, do you get hit for the time on a tiebreaker, or do you need to throw in the towel for the clock to stop? No, you're. So the tiebreaker is the time of your last double under before the rep that you don't, or no, your tiebreaker is the time of your last double under completed, no matter
Yes.
what. So whatever rep you end on doesn't really matter. If you get 0 squat cleans or 5 squat cleans, your tiebreaker is whatever your total rep count is with your time as the tiebreaker. So
Yeah, and
yes, still go for your
that's only
still go
with
for your clean.
people on the same rep as you.
Right.
Right.
So still go for that clean. That's still going to
Yeah.
bump you ahead of even if somebody gets done with that double under before you. If you get that clean, you're going to beat them.
If they finish the double unders 2 minutes before you and don't get a clean, and you get one clean, you still win.
Yeah. Yeah. So yes, don't. Don't ever throw in the towel ever.
Someone said, so knowing I'm not going to hit 225, should I really push after 185? Yes, that's exactly what we were saying earlier. So
Right.
if you know there's a weight that you're absolutely not going to clean, and I'm not saying don't try it, but if you know you're not going to clean it, um, you need to
Better
pace
that
the
much better.
workout based on finishing like the 2 rounds for time, basically.
Yeah.
You want to get to those double unders as absolutely fast as you can.
Yeah. Uh, Monty asked if slap in the face helps with adrenaline. Absolutely.
Yep.
If you get to 275 and you've never hit it before, get somebody to come slap you.
Yep. Get some smelling salts too.
Monty's a client of my gym, so he's worried about the maybe the 135. Um, any other questions now that we're kind of finished with the actual slides that we have? We answered some questions already, but what other questions do we have from anybody?
One more was being a semi-scaler for the Open. Do I go RX for 1 round or scale and get three or four? That's kind of on you. Just depends
Uh,
on
I do know that if you go prescribed for any of it, you're going to be ahead of the people who go scale for the whole thing.
in that workout.
Yeah.
Because
So
yeah,
regardless, so if you do these first two workouts prescribed, and then you have to scale the next three, you're going to be ahead of the person who does all five scaled. And then I think it's the same if you do. So I don't know if you can. I don't know if you can switch in the middle of it.
you can do some workout scaled and some RX.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm saying in
I
the
just
middle
had
of
this
the actual
conversation with
workout.
somebody the other day. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I want to do 1 round scaled and then 1 round RX and then the
Yeah.
remaining scaled.
No, I'm saying I think if you start the workout prescribed, then you would put a prescribed time in. And so
Oh, is that what
my
we do?
suggestion would be do it prescribed if you can do 1 round prescribed because you'll be
Yeah,
ahead of the person that does it scaled.
yeah. I think some people too just want the challenge of knowing they did it RX. So
Right.
I think you have enough time to do both.
Yeah. Yeah. For
Do
sure.
your RX on the first attempt and then do the scaled on the second one and blow it up.
Yep. Yeah.
Again, we don't think if you're someone who's worried about doing scale versus RX, not to be discouraging, but it's not going to be a ton of work for you on the first attempt.
Right.
Probably do it the next day.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. It's probably only going to be 25 toes to bar, 50 double unders, and 15 squat cleans. You can probably do them right back
Um,
to back. Maybe we should do that.
I think you're getting out of hand now. All right, I don't see any other questions, guys. If there's anything else, now's your chance. Oh, we
um,
got one more.
hands ripped. Um,
Dang, get some gloves.
yeah, get some gloves. There's some. What is that? Oh, I'm drawing a blank on the cream that I've had people put on there that it really helps with it.
I use Winnie's Rip Fix, and it's pretty fast. Um, I mean, getting a good tape job too is helpful. Like getting tape that doesn't have adhesive, covering up the bandage by wrapping over your finger, and then taping around the wrists will help. Um, I use gloves called Stronger RX. They're the best gloves I've found, like to do CrossFit workouts with because they're really snug to the hand and they don't slide around a lot. Like I do muscle ups, double unders, squat cleans with them. So I mean, there's a bunch of different ways, but it really always depends on the bar that you're using, the pull-up bar.
Yeah, I just try not to rip my hands.
Someone asked, would gymnastics straps give you more grip on the squat clean, even
No.
though the bar will? I've actually experimented with that. Sometimes I've worn grips and noticed better grip in my deadlift, but that was only with a deadlift. With cleans or Olympic lifts, it makes it worse for me
Yeah, I would think the
because of the hook
if
grip.
nothing else, the hook grip and the transition into the rack position, I would think would be funky.
Yeah. But I think Dan was wearing gymnastics grips, and I think he was taking them off for the cleans and turning it around or something.
Yeah, they were. Both were. What was the name of those gloves again, Mike? Somebody asked.
Stronger RX. I'm a big fan of those.
Should I eat regular meal 3 hours before? Yeah, that was my suggestion: is eat a regular meal 3 or so hours before, and then maybe right before get some amino acids and maybe some light carbs if you're used to doing that. Um, Really, this workout I wouldn't change a whole lot. Don't overthink it. Looks like a lot on paper. It's a really cool workout. I like the workout, but don't overthink it. It's going to be pretty standard to a kind of a CrossFit workout that you've done before as far as fueling goes.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
okay to do a heavy strength workout 10 to 15 minutes after workout or rest longer. I mean, it depends on how heavy you're going and how important it is if you're supposed to hit certain percentages in that strength workout. But I mean, yeah, I think it would be fine to do some strength work afterwards. I've
Yep.
got some people texting me questions. I guess they're afraid to ask questions on the thing.
We have
Um,
one more. How much is grip going to be a factor for non-regional athletes?
yeah, there you go. That was one of them. Um, like I was kind of thinking it was going to be a little bit more of a factor, but you made a good point when we were talking about it before we got on the call that it probably wouldn't be because of the total volume and because you have breaks in between, and I kind of agree with that now that you said it. That I don't think toes to bar the grip is going to necessarily be a factor. I think if you are somebody that starts losing rhythm and your hip flexion starts getting weak on toes to bar, I think that's going to be more of a factor than your actual grip. So if you are somebody that starts losing rhythm where you can't keep that good efficient kip, that's where I would say you go ahead and break relatively early to so that you can keep that good rhythm even if you have to go to singles like we talked about earlier. Those fast singles or doubles or triples are going to be better than hanging from the bar swinging around to get one at a time. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, completely agree.
The other question I got was breaking up toes to bar on the first round. What's a good breakup for a regionals, borderline regionals level athlete? I think the biggest thing is just descending sets. I think, again, like we talked about, going out a little bit faster than we initially thought. So maybe you go uh, 15-10 on the first set or something like that. But I think pretty big chunks early on is going to be important.
Yeah. I mean, you essentially get like what you finish the total. You get almost 3 minutes of rest before you have to come back and do it. I know
Yeah.
you're cleaning, but it's only 15 reps.
Yeah. Wait,
Um,
have a broken toe. Any taping techniques for double unders? Man, that stinks.
Ouch.
I don't have anything for you.
I don't know either. I'm not a tape trainer.
No, maybe steel-toed boots. I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds brutal.
Yeah, it is.
I'd be more worried about kicking the bar on toe to bar.
Yeah. I can't
Uh,
squat clean 285, but I can hang squat clean it. If I pick it up or from the hang, do you think it'll count? I don't think so. I think it has to be one motion from the ground.
yeah,
Don't quote me on
I
that,
don't
but
know. I
I
would
don't
read
think so.
yeah, I would read the rules on that because I have seen people do that where they pick it up, they put it in the hang, and then they do a hip clean.
Yeah,
And in some competitions that counts. It's like an A to B thing. But as we've learned recently in the CrossFit Games Open, that any kind of
yeah,
uncommon movement clause, I just wouldn't even mess with it.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think when the time comes, it's 275, so you'll be able to hit it.
yep.
Any other questions? Good questions on here.
I'm about to go eat dinner. If not,
Sweet. Fuel up. Hit it hard. Everybody watch out to see who wins
hey
between
guys.
Brandy and Mike.
Yeah, guys, thanks for listening. Mike, do you have our emails on there in case anyone ever has any questions?
No, I
Where
can
can they
I'll
find us?
put them in the chat box. I did put on there in the beginning. Whoa, sorry. Um, Barbell Shrugged, overtime.barbellshrugged.com is where you can find us. If you're in there in the forum, we're in there asking any questions. I think this will be sent out to all the Barbell Shrug people tomorrow morning. My email is McElroy at barbellshrug.com. McGee's is, what is yours?
It's just McG at barbellshrug.com, MCG.
All right. Um, oops.
And yes, we will be doing this the rest of the Open. So each week we'll send out another link. Hurry up and sign up because this one actually filled up this time,
Yeah, we're
which
limited.
was
We're capped at
really, really
250.
awesome. So Yeah, we appreciate all you guys coming out, and we'll see you next week, and good luck with it.
Yep, sounds good. Let us know if you have any questions or if anything we did helped you. Post it on social media or something.
All right, see you guys.
Later, guys.